Hi guys, this is our 12th video, and with this, remember where we left off last time was where we had this runtime issue where if our planets array was empty, we were getting this, because we didn't add anything to the planets array, we were getting an index out of bounds error. And this was causing our program to crash, and if we had an app, our app would be crashing. So we should probably fix this by checking the whether the planets array is empty first, because then we probably don't want to we can't get a planet out of it because there are no planets there. So to check whether an array is empty, you can pretty easily there's a nice method. We could check whether the planets array the count of the array was 0, but there's actually also a method called isEmpty. So it's a boolean, so planets.is empty. It's a bit easier to read. So we say isEmpty, we do this, and then if it isn't empty, we continue doing what we did. And remember, I'm going to highlight my 2 lines of code, and then use a command right square bracket to indent both of them in, and then enter, and then add my finishing bracket. And so we want to say if planets is empty, then we want to do something else. We actually can't return a planet because there's no planet. There's no planet to return, and this comes to the concept of optionals, where I'm going to actually add a question mark here. And this will remind you of the exclamation point we had to add earlier, because when we were doing our read lines. So this is an optional, because an optional is like a type of variable. Any data type in Swift can be an optional, and an optional, the best conceptual description of it, analogy, is an optional is like a present, and you have a gift wrapped present, and it's in a box, gift wrapped, and you don't know what's inside. You don't know whether there's anything inside at all, actually. You could just have an empty present box. So when you look at that present box, you can unwrap it and find if there's anything inside. But if you try to unwrap it immediately and you find that there's nothing inside, you'll be sad. So in that way, those exclamation points we added, which is essentially checking whether exclamation points are force unwrapping. So like in the analogy, if you unwrap the present box, if you just unwrap it like that, and you find there's nothing inside, you'll be sad. And that's going to be because your program will crash. Because if you try to force unwrap with an exclamation point, you will get a crash if there's nothing inside the present, because nothing inside the present means that the value is nil. So variables, optionals, are like addresses to a house that you don't know whether the house is there or not, and you can check whether the house is there, and then you can deal with it accordingly, and you can check whether it's not there, and you can deal with that accordingly. So just like that, we're gonna, because we have this as a question mark now, so now we want to say return nil. If planets is empty, then you can't do anything about it. You just return nothing. In Swift, nothing is the keyword, 3-letter keyword nil, and so you can either return a planet object, because this is a planet optional, so you can return a planet inside your present box, or you can say that there's nothing inside my present box. And then we're just leaving it for someone else to unwrap and see whether they decide that they want to force unwrap and risk crashing, or they want to carefully unwrap it. And what you always want to do is carefully unwrap it, because we could just say exclamation point there, everything would work. That's a force unwrap, but we don't want to do this. And instead, we want to do something called if-let. It's an if-let statement saying that if we have a planet in that if we got a planet out of that gift box, then we do x, y, z. And if we didn't, we can say an else statement. But in this case, we want to put that inside the if let, because this is basically saying if we can assign the contents of the gift box of random planet, because remember, random planet is a planet question mark, meaning it's a planet optional. So if we can assign the contents of that gift box to the planet variable, which is not optional anymore, we're saying that if we can get the contents, so this is no longer an optional, and that's what's important. So then we can access that variable just like this. But if we don't, if we find nil, if we find nil, then the if let will return false, and then we won't end up going here, we'll go into our else. So that's where we can say, sorry, there are no planets in this system. So now if we run this, remember we haven't added anything here, so there are no planets in there. So remember 0 planets, so my name, and let's go to a random place. And it said there are no planets in the system because, first of all, it went here and then saw planets is empty, so it returned nil in this optional. This optional was nil. Keep in mind that optionals don't have to be computed types, they could be normal types like these. Like you could make this an optional. We don't want to in our case, but you could. And so in this case it said it's empty, so we return nil. And then over here we said, well, it's nil, so we can't do this if let. So we go to our else, and then we say this. So now we add to it. Remember, I'm getting rid of this comment now. So this code is back into the game. It's doing stuff now. So there are 2 planets to explore now. So now it works, traveling to Neptune. So now we have a pretty functional space adventure, and we can fix our code a bit because we still have this to-do left over here, but we're going to do that on a later date. I'll do it in some later videos, but keep in mind that you have a finished up, well, not finished, it's never finished, but there are lots of possibilities left with this program, and you can make this more user-friendly. You can add more features to it, and these are in these videos in the last, I think this is the 13th, but so these videos cover the very basics of Swift, and if you know these, iOS development will be pretty smooth. So that's it for now.